Good evening to you, Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com. I'm going to take a look at Tropical Depression number 9 real quick. This evening, it's about 6:45 p.m. On Friday the 13th, a quick update on TD9. Soon to be Tropical Storm Umberto down in the southwest Atlantic Basin. There it is right there in the vicinity of the Bahamas. And the key messages here, it's forecast to become a tropical storm. No significant storm surge, which is great news. And really not much impact for Florida or the Carolinas in terms of sensible weather. You know, again, weather that you can feel. Rainfall will be limited to just right along the coast, if that. The main thing here is, I think, going to be swells that get kicked up from this system and head towards the coast. You surfers are really going to like that, but you know, you got to be careful out there for sure. Looking at the cone here and the track, kind of an unusual track for September. Usually you see these come up and kind of turn out at a much sharper angle, or less sharp. I don't know, how do you look at that? Never was strong at math. This is an unusual angle right here. Nevertheless, it's a positive angle for those of us that live along the coast that would rather not have to deal with hurricane conditions or anything like that. But as this strengthens, and it is forecast to be a hurricane, you know, well off the coast of Cape Fear and Cape Hatteras, it will kick up the surf, and that can be very problematic if you are not careful. I plan to head down to the beach when that happens and fly the old quadcopter over the ocean and catch some of that action when it happens. At least we can see it from that perspective. That'll be kind of interesting. But seriously, surfers are going to like this. But everybody else, you know, including the surfers too, be careful, please, because the wave energy is much bigger than you are. And it's an amazing thing to catch those big waves, but you have to be really, really careful. And families that are visiting the beaches, etc., please pay attention to any warnings from your local lifeguards or beach patrol units, so forth and so on. We want you alive. If you're not alive, you can't watch these videos, and it does me no good. So your safety is my number one concern. Looking at the satellite picture here, kind of a mess, wouldn't you say? Look at that large area. And yeah, tucked right in here is this tropical depression. Not the most structurally appealing system that we've ever seen. And yeah, I guess that's good as long as it stays out over water and doesn't affect land. I suppose it could become as structurally beautiful as it wants to be. But it is pretty close to the Bahamas there, and enough of the weather. I mean, look, if you look closely, I know I could have done a close-up shot, but most of the weather is avoiding the Bahamas, and that certainly is welcome news for those folks. But this is supposed to come together more, become Tropical Storm Umberto, and again make some kind of a track like this over the next several days. There's just not enough ridging out here over the Atlantic to block it and send it more in a westerly course, it does appear. So we probably don't have to worry about this directly impacting the southeast United States coastline. A couple of other areas to watch in the Atlantic, plenty of time to watch those. What happens with Umberto to be and how quickly it gets out of here, I think will determine the fate ultimately of these systems. Either one or both of them, we shall see. So a lot to watch over the next few days for sure. A tweet from Ben Knoll kind of puts it into perspective here to keep everything real, as it were. This is the old European ensemble group, and I can't remember if the black line is the ensemble mean or the operational. It might be the operational, but nevertheless, all of these little lines you see in here are the different ensemble members of the European model, the ECMWF. That's the old run. This is the new run. And what I really want to point out, there are a few members, yes, that do some wild things here, but those are only a few. There are more that do some wild things, I guess, and bring it back closer to the mid-Atlantic and the East Coast. But really, the stronger it is, it looks like it's going to feel this weakness that's up here in the atmosphere, kind of a low-pressure area. between the big high that's going to build out here, there's this corridor through this area. There's literally, that's what it's seeing. Most of the model members are seeing this corridor, but it's not, until it's happening, it's not 100%. But it's looking very favorable for those that live along the coast of the United States, and probably Bermuda, but you never know. Now, Bermuda is a small enough land mass, or series of land masses. Bermuda is not just one island, in case you didn't know that. And we have to watch Bermuda, too, just to be sure, and we shall do that. And looking at the 18Z GFS, the 850 millibar level of the atmosphere, there is Umberto to be, TD number 9. That is Bermuda. So let's use the slider here on Levi's site and just put this into motion. You see what happens, and pay no attention to all this activity down here. Focus on Umberto to be right there. Keep your eyes on that, all right? I should just go in and like scribble all this out. You can't look at that. Don't worry about that stuff right now. This is about 5 days out. So you see it turns the corner. It gets pretty close in the GFS there to the northern Florida coastline. Kind of reminds you of Matthew and Dorian. But then there's just, and in this case, very luckily, not enough of this ridge building back this way, not enough ridging over the top. There's this escape route right through here that should allow this to move on out, and that's what it does. You see that? And the ridging actually kind of builds back to the south and west and kind of kicks this out. You know, it's very interesting how this works. You see ridging trying to build in this way, so it blocks it. That's your alleyway right through there. It's all interesting. It's fluid dynamics, and I think it's really fascinating. So we'll watch it. I'm not going to walk away from this and be, oh, it's not going to hit anybody. I don't care. Of course I care until it's moving away, and then we want to see what kind of swells this generates and how many ace points. There's a lot to watch, even if these things are going to be, as we call, fish storms and head out into the open Atlantic. And yes, we'll see what happens down here in the main development region with any future developments that happen to come along. All I'll say about that is just go back in time. When does that start to develop? About 48 to 60 hours out, it looks like, down in the deep tropics there. We'll see. The longer something down here takes to develop, the farther west that it'll get, and it'll avoid the hole that gets left in the ridge up here. And we'll wait for that later. But I've done this long enough to know the longer they take to develop, the more west they typically go. And then we have to start watching and waiting for our friends down here in the islands. All right? I'll be on top of that. So a year ago tonight, into tomorrow night, technically 52 weeks ago, but 365 days ago tomorrow, whatever, the 14th into the 15th, was the landfall of Hurricane Florence. Before you run out and see the latest It Chapter 2 in IMAX or whatever and spend $20 on that ticket, spend $13 on Amazon Prime or $4 to rent it and check out Tracking the Hurricanes 2018, my documentary. I put a lot of work into this over the past several months. It came out at the end of May. A lot of folks have seen it. Well, a lot in my world. And that's wonderful, but I want to get the word out because I think that it's important. It's a great piece. It's a great showcase of our work, and it's very, very incredible, especially the end. But Florence really kicked this off, the first of 2 significant hurricanes for the United States last year, and the 14-year project of developing these unmanned camera systems to capture hurricanes like we've never seen them before. Leading the way was Florence first in North Carolina, and then Category 5 Michael down in Mexico Beach and elsewhere, not just Mexico Beach. Get the documentary. It's worth it. I mean, you know, of course I'm going to say that, but ask anybody on Twitter who's seen it. However you do that. But, you know, it is really good. I think you'll like it. It's very powerful. That's the word I'm looking for. It's not entertaining. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be an expose of how we do what we do in tracking the hurricanes that we had in 2018, including this version here. We had a version that we showed in the movie theaters, thanks to our sponsor that we had for that, the Boggs Law Group out of St. Petersburg, Florida, allowed us to show this in Tallahassee and in Wilmington, North Carolina, back in May and June. and now it's on Amazon Prime Video, the director's cut, a full 2 hours and a minute or so, 2 hours, 1 minute, or something like that, and you won't be disappointed. And in fact, I think it will motivate you to learn more about hurricanes as a whole and appreciate what we do with the funding and the support from you all. All right, so check that out. Oh, how do you get to it? Tracking the Hurricanes 2018, just search for that. There's the search bar right there. Easy to find. I'll put a link in the description. All right, that is it from me for this evening. You guys have a great weekend ahead. Of course, I'll be in producing videos tomorrow and Sunday as we track what will eventually be Umberto, and we'll see what develops. Presumably, it'll stay out to sea, but if not, we shall be ready, shan't we? All right, have a great rest of your evening. Mark's out of HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you more over the weekend.